to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to start with attendance. Dave, do you have any questions on our attendance?
I do not.
Next up is our agenda approval. Do we have any changes or corrections, Brian, to our?
I had 2 changes. One, the high school principal's report will be a written report only, as Mr. Lattimore needs to be at the basketball game tonight. And then our agenda letter L has been changed to an open session at the individual's request, so I've updated that as well.
Toby, do you agree with this change?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have an agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Board member recognition.
Okay. Want to thank Jody for your 8 years on the Hinckley-Finlayson School Board, 6 of which have been as the chair. Thank you for always putting the students and staff of Hinckley-Finlayson first in your decision making. I appreciate, even though maybe not at the time, the disagreements we have had and the agreements we have had, as I feel those conversations ended up leading to better decisions for the school district. And I wanted to share a quick fun story. About 9 years ago, the high school principal at the time was trying to make sure written passes were being used in the high school more frequently. So if a kid needed to come out of class, you need to have a pass. Well, at the time, the principal wasn't quite sure that this situation had different circumstances. As a student came into the office, I got after that student for not having a pass. The office staff knew that this student didn't need a pass, but the principal at the time didn't. That is how I was introduced to Jody Storley, as I was the high school principal at the time, and Jody Storley gave me quite the fun phone call about 15 minutes after that. So in all seriousness, Jody, thank you for a great 8 years and everything you've done for the school district, for our school board, for our staff, and we are going to miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something? Okay. I want to personally thank Jody for being my mentor and pouring your time and knowledge into me. Jody, you have served our district well through your professionalism and compassion. You have been selfless with your time and dedication, and you will be missed on this board. Thank you for your leadership, and most importantly, your friendship.
Thank you.
Very good.
Oh, all right, we're gonna move on. Open forum, rules for open forum. There are 3 minutes per speaker. Open forum shall not take a total of 15 minutes. No complaints about individual staff members, about our students, or about other persons are permitted. All presenters will conduct their business in a manner that meets community standards for decorum. The board will not take action on items presented in an open forum. Mrs. Hartle is here to speak.
True.
Do you want to stand anywhere specific?
You can stand wherever you would like.
Well, we're not going to move on because I also wanted to come in and thank Jody for all of her time. She's led us through some pretty difficult events. We got a referendum, construction on a couple different buildings, COVID, online learning. And then when we came back from online learning, there was a sub shortage, so she showed up in the building every time we needed subs, she was there. She's really one of the most selfless people that I honestly know. She's always been kind and compassionate, but not afraid to ask the hard questions. And always her motivation has been what's best for our students. And myself, my children, my whole family is better for you having been on our school board, and I will be forever grateful.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on again to the consent agenda. Does anybody need anything pulled from our consent agenda? Place later? Has anything changed?
Nope.
All right, then I'm looking for a motion to approve our consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is the bills. If you have a question on the bills, please state the bill number and the page number. Does anybody have any questions on the bills? If there are no questions on the bills, then I am looking for a motion to pay our bills.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. First up for reports is the superintendent's report.
I'm gonna jump down to number 3 just because I have quite a bit to kind of go over tonight. Just for everyone besides Jody, the MSBA Winter Conference is coming for board members through MSBA. It's January 15th and 16th. So if you'd like to attend, I believe you guys have the agenda. If not, I can print that and send that to you. But if you'd like to attend, like to spend the night, please let me know so I can get you reserved and get you hotel reservations. I know we have at least 2 board members already signed up. So if you'd like to go, let me know and we'll get you signed up. Jill and I will. Next, number 4 is just the seniority list. We do publish this to staff by October per our contract. But just if you're curious what our teacher seniority list, it is there for you to see. Later in the agenda, the board's going to discuss my mid-year evaluation process. So I shared it's December for me, it's mid-year, so I shared an update on goals and can answer any questions on that. But then I wanted to go to number 7. If you remember last month, Becky Mackey came to the board and talked about adult swim prices. The board asked her to come up with, make a little bit of changes, so that is attached where you can see as of January 1st, she has some fees on there, $3 for adult swim, Saturday aerobics, and open swim. Option 1, there can be a punch card, and you can see the cost there for that, or option 2 could be part of the fitness membership, $60 a year or $7 a month for 65 and older. And a one-time of $21 for badge and background checks. So looking for approval to change that for our senior citizens. And it does need board approval because in July, when we set our fees, activities and events, which the pool has fallen under, is free for our senior citizens. I don't know if you want to do that first or want me to keep going.
Yeah, let's do it now. Does anybody have any questions regarding the adult swim price change? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve it.
I'll move that.
There's a motion and there's a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Next, mechanic positions. So I do have a little bit of an update since I typed this. We do have 3 applicants. We had posted on Indeed, and the superintendent thought that Indeed sends emails when a person applies there. I have not received that, but did look at Indeed today. We do have 3 applicants. So I did reach out to them to get the full application process, as some of them submitted a resume, some of them just said, yes, I'm interested. So I did reach out to all them and waiting to get their full application materials. I'm wondering, however, if the board is open to giving a little more flexibility into the salary for the mechanic. It starts at about $20.75 per hour, which I do not believe is fair compensation for someone who works year-round. It has to be pretty much on duty, at least during the school year, around the clock in case something happens. We also asked them to get their Class B CDL license, and the posting, which we've always done, is had the mechanic bring their own tool set. I don't even know, I'd put a number in there where 60,000 could be a starting point. I could certainly repost it and put that, and then still say dependent on experience and references and things like that. But our support staff agreement doesn't give me the authority to go that high. So I'm looking for either approval to go a little higher or at least post it a little bit higher as a starting point to see if we can get someone who has the skills and also to compensate for the bigness of the job. So I'm happy we have some applicants, but and the couple who's shared some of their resume, it looks promising, but I am fearful that when we get to that end of the interview process that our current salary schedules may not be high enough.
Brian, under the current posting, is it set up to where the job posting would require the mechanic to drive bus routes?
We do require them, they'd be a backup. Basically, they wouldn't have a normal route every day, but they're one of our go-to backups.
Maybe a sub.
Yeah.
Who pays for the CDL?
They pay for the license. We can train in-house. Plus there's some online training that they can do. That could be something we discuss too. But we are able to get them the road experience and get them some of the testing materials in-house.
And you did say you currently have 3 applicants?
Correct.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to raise it if we're gonna get a quality mechanic.
Better the mechanic, the less you have to send out.
Right.
But it isn't just the mechanic here. If he's gonna take something, if he's got the ability to take things apart, there's only one stall. You know, this time of year, you're not gonna work outside.
Right.
So you limit his ability, or you potentially limit what he can do by the facility that we have. Summertime is different, you know, you can, just if it's raining, you know.
Yep.
So
So you mean if he has a bus tour part in the stall, he's not gonna be able to fix another bus?
right.
Is that kind of what your point is, Dave?
Right. And maybe there's enough, you know, substitute buses where that can put that off. I mean, it's a juggling act that way.
And then the last one at our Climate Retention and Communication Committee meeting, we had an individual ask about those students in grades 7 through 12 who live on the west side of Hinckley. Currently, our bus stop policy, and at least in my 15 years, we do not bus students in grades 7 through 12 who live on the west side of Hinckley. And there was talk by this individual who brought it up, as well as that committee. Is that something we want to change, look at changing? It would require bus stop policy. The part we can look up, we do know how many kids live on west side. In 7 through 12, we don't necessarily know yet how many of them would ride. Could be 10, could be 20, could be 30. So what we are currently doing, depending what the board does, but we are currently looking at just that route, how much room would it have? Otherwise, if it would overfill that route, we would possibly have to look at another route that just goes to the west side. Part of why it was brought up is at least for student retention, is you see the East Central school bus go through that town. I don't know that they're going door to door, but they're for sure doing bus stops, and their billboard that says East Central is going through. Would it be a way to keep more of our high school students? For sure in the winter months, it would probably be safer or warmer, especially, you know, we're gonna have some snow on Wednesday. Those snowbanks build up quick. Kids are crossing Highway 61 in the dark, both morning and afternoon now. So we would have a possible temporary solution in the meantime, because we have some other people who can drive bus if we were just adding a quick route. But we're still doing research if it would currently fit on our existing routes. But I wanted to see the board's thoughts on that first.
Probably wouldn't take long to run that route, would it? For wages, wouldn't be expensive.
Even one option could be the current buses, except for time, maybe could loop back around. Like I said, we have some other people who have their license that maybe it would work in a temporary while we're working on the logistics of this could, maybe there's some shifting, but I think we could figure it out pretty quick and then have a permanent solution, if not yet this month, for sure after the holidays.
Well, I think if we're gonna do it for that bus route, then we also have to do it for the bus route that goes north and the bus route that goes east and south off of 48. I mean, even though I believe it's law up to 2 miles
Mhm.
that you can ask a student to walk to school, if there's room on the buses, I don't know why we are saying no, or, I mean, I understand it's policy, but if there's room and we can make it, I think it will help with tardies. There's lots of times you see kids walking when you know they should be in the buildings.
Yep.
When it's cold out. So I think if you can do it, they're safer on the bus
Yeah.
than they are walking.
Students
Across
walking.
48 or across 61.
Yeah, those are the two big roads, like,
It may be 5 kids, it could be more, I mean, even if we offer it, doesn't mean they're necessarily gonna get on, but at
Yeah.
least the offer's there.
well, the policies reads may be required, it's not, I mean, we should be busing.
But
We've-
what school starts sooner? The high school?
Elementary.
Elementary starts sooner. So even if you got those kids dropped off and like a little early on that bus route, there's breakfast.
Yeah, we serve breakfast from 7:45 to 8:05.
So, I mean, you'd be able to drop off, go back through town, or at least west
I
side.
think, my envision would be still we'd use our
Right.
bus stops. We wouldn't necessarily go door to door.
No, right,
But, we have those 4 or 5 bus stops in the square around
yeah,
west side. I would just envision we do it again, or another route does that,
yeah.
and maybe they just fit as is. Maybe there'd have to be no adjustment. We've always, or we've tried, when it's really cold or really snowy, if they're out there, we're not gonna say, no, you gotta walk, we'll let them on, but it probably hasn't been publicized well enough either.
No, but I think it has been told to some kids that once you get to 7th grade, you're not
Yep.
riding the bus if you
Yep.
live in town.
Correct.
So it would have to be communicated.
So Bruce and my thought was, hear what the board thought tonight. He and I would sit down, work out the logistics, and if not yet this week, for sure by next week, we'd have it up and running to pick up those kids. We gotta communicate in times and locations, but give us a couple days to iron out those details and at least have it ready to roll by Monday next week, if not sooner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's supposed to be cold this week, can they, if they're at the stop, I mean, when
Yeah.
they're on the bus,
Right.
like, do we have to even turn more this?
No, if they're out, pick them up. Yeah.
And Brian, regarding just taking a step back to that mechanic position, are you gonna elevate the recommended starting?
Yeah, I think I would post it at 60,000.
Okay.
And then also put, could be negotiated based on experience and expertise, and
Sure.
go from there.
Are the buses diesel?
Most of them, we have 3 gas buses.
Okay.
Most are diesel though.
With labor market information, an automotive technician, the range is starting out is right 1863 and going up to 90th percentile is about 3826. For a
An
bus
hour.
and truck mechanic and diesel engine specialist, starting is right around 2454, going up to the 90th percentile at 4080. So yeah,
So our low end may be there, but we're at the low end,
yeah.
if not very low end.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Masterson? All right, then we are going to move on to high school principal's report, which is written only this year. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? And if you don't have any questions, make sure you get them to Brian and he can get the answers to the whole board in the Friday update. If there are no questions, then we're gonna keep moving on to Mrs. Sculler's report.
Good evening. Just a few updates on kind of what we're doing in our school buildings. Our PLC time mainly is focused around our ELA. trying to boost up our scores on MCAs as well as our benchmarking. We do 3 times a year. A lot of our identifying deficits through our MCAs was around vocab, and kids being able to make those context connections. So we're spending a lot of time on that. Trying to find ways to get more student discourse or kids talking more in our classes. So number 2, we talk about our win time. Each class has 40 to 50 minutes of win time, really focusing on what our kids need. That's about the only time of the day. We ability group in our classrooms. Teachers do small group and whatnot as they go through their instruction, but we really allow for our high flyers to fly a little bit and enhance and push a little bit, where some of our learners who are struggling with certain components, we are able to delve in a little bit deeper with that. So win time is, I think it's very productive and very beneficial for our kids. We've also added a fluency block. Again, just trying to get our kids reading more, so hopefully we see the results in that through our MCAs and our benchmarking. Had really good attendance again this year at our conferences. Hinckley dropped a little bit below 90, so that's a little heartbreaking, but we're at 86%, so I'm not going to complain. Connecting with almost 90% of our families is huge. I was very busy those nights and just watching the relationships our teachers have with our families and those connections, and both positive and those conversations about the struggles our kids are having. They're just really, it's awesome to hear and see. Book fair is always huge. Brings a lot of people in. Kids love it. Parents use it as kind of a reward system and love it. Finlayson has the book fair will be up here on Friday during the concert, so we're hoping that will bring a few more people in as well. We have the cafeteria jobs again this year, still going well. Super proud of the kids. Even when kids are gone, they just love to help, and they volunteer to go clean and pick up after each other, so that's awesome. A new thing we're doing this year, we've partnered and teamed with WCMP. So we started this in November. So our sponsors from our community really are making this possible for our kids. Students nominate another student that they see being kind. They are selected. They're on the radio, I believe, 7:30 and 4:30. Excuse me, for that week. They come in, and that student that nominated them gets to tell them why they were nominated. They get a t-shirt and they get a little trinket that was supplied by our sponsors, and it's been pretty well received. Kids are nominating kids all the time. It's really fun. We had TC Bayer at Hinckley Elementary with the strikeout plan, talking about mental health. Notice it, name it, and share it. There was a video clip included there. Kids loved it. It was recommended for K-5. We assumed our 6th graders could handle it. We were uncertain what the program was like, if our preschool kids could have done it, and I really do think they could have. So if we bring them back, it will be a full school assembly. So that was really fun. The kids, again, loved it, and we have the posters up throughout the school. It's fun to see some of the things they see on TV making their way to their school. So, and finished up with Q1 reward day. We went down to Rush City and went bowling. 92% of our kids got to go on that reward day. So that was kids who either didn't get a referral or they were able to buy it back, and kids who were at school and met our attendance policy in that regard. So only 4 students bought back a referral, so we're not letting kids just randomly buy it back. If they have a major incident, they can't buy it back, and those students who are gone too much or tardy, they are not able to buy that back either. So 92%, so it was pretty awesome. Unfortunately, we did have 18 students who were not there that day just because it's the time of year where illness is going through. So questions or concerns for me.
How do they buy it back?
Jag bucks.
Okay.
So they, when they're caught doing a kind gesture or, you know, practicing our pause expectations, they get a pause buck. They get 10 of them, they get to buy that referral back.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't explain that very well, I just said buy it back, so, it's a good question.
We thought maybe you were profit.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
little side pot,
$10.
Christmas shopping.
The only question I have, Bonnie, is on conference attendance.
Mhm.
So if parents don't show up, do our teachers call then? So they still make contact
Yep.
regarding the students?
Yep, and sometimes if they even have a phone conference, we'll count that as attended.
Oh,
Some
okay.
families you just,
Yeah.
we aren't able to connect with, so.
Okay,
Our teachers
we
work
try.
super hard
we
to,
do, okay.
yep. It really helps having those appointment times. 5th and 6th don't have appointment times
Yeah.
at Hinckley Elementary, just because they're departmentalized, so they see all the teachers. And that's where we see the biggest drop, even here in Finlayson. We just see a drop as the ages go up. But if they have a conference time set for that time, they make a call, they make calls before school, after school, they really work to connect with our families.
Okay.
It's pretty awesome to see.
Does anybody else have any questions for Mrs. Sculler?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is communications, I don't believe.
Board committees.
Next up is board committees. Does anybody want to tell about the board committee meetings for the past month?
It was just based around a lot of negotiations talks. And then we did have a special meeting to approve the teacher master agreement. So there's progress being made there.
PD was, they were just updating on Epic, which is happening on January 19th, I believe it is.
Yep.
So we're just going through the schedule back.
I would say the climate, communication retention meeting, there was a lot of discussion, and that was really good to hear. There was a lot of, the discussion about the school buses, trying to figure out some of the problem solving with students. Then there was some, like Autumn and Matt, they shared some really good ideas, for students on how to, just different areas. And then also Matt, the connection that he's really working hard to do with connecting the teachers and staff and just making it kind of a more cohesive team, inviting both high school and the elementary schools. It was just really good to hear. So, yeah.
And it was also brought up to bring the Jaguar track back.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. Yeah.
If not necessarily monthly, but maybe quarterly to start out with. So I don't know if that takes board action to get that up and running, or how we go about getting that.
It's a cost, so I don't know what the cost is, but it would be a cost to do that.
So if we mailed it quarterly, but what about if we also did like some monthly kind of flyers and had them at public spaces?
Yeah, we can do that, it's just printing and getting them those places, but.
I think we need to get them into every household to celebrate all the good and to let people know what's going on.
Well, not everybody is on Facebook.
Right.
I can figure out what the cost, we probably haven't done it monthly.
I don't remember it
Probably.
being that much even when we did do it.
I
And
think
we
it
dropped
was
it
run
down
through-
to
it used to be run
those
through community.
who wanted, yeah.
I can
I think.
do some
the phone
digging
should
and find
go
out what
across
that cost is and let you all know. I mean, if we went from monthly to quarterly, obviously that goes down too, but. And the cost it's probably been 10, maybe not 10, at least since COVID, since we've mailed
It's
them.
been 5.
It's been
Yeah.
years.
So cost probably goes up a little, but I'll find what I can and get you that information.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to budget topics.
You can see where our enrollment was as of December 1st, which I believe went down a couple from last month. Still 12 down from what we had budgeted for. We knew the enrollment was gonna go down compared to last year, but we're still a little bit under that. The biggest change from parents is we had some people moving and some moving to online schools. So that's kind of the reasons why the last kind of group decided to leave. Mr. Lattimore and Mrs. Hartle will begin registering kids for next school year this month. I believe I saw Mrs. Hartle put out an email that those meetings are happening later this week, so that will start to set the at least high school classes for next year. Once we kind of get through the levy and taxation, that will also kickstart our budgeting process for next year. So those are big things, at least budget-wise, that we're working on right now. And I'll take any questions on that part.
Next up,
Policy?
yep, next up is our fund balance policy. Is that one or done?
No. I mean, we can talk about fund balance policy if you'd like. It was last approved in April of 25, otherwise it'd be letter B.
Okay,
Those
so then
four.
we're gonna move on to section 504 policy, conflict of interest policy 210, policy 311, principal evaluation system, policy 408, acceptable use.
The only policy that has changes in this is the 504 policy where I just updated names. The other ones, it's just a review as we haven't reviewed them in 3 years and nothing has changed. So the only policy with changes is section 504, and that was just updating, make sure my name in there and Mallory Greenwald's name is in there.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the 4 policies, or does anybody want any of the 4 policies pulled? If not, then I'm looking for a motion to approve section 504, policy 210, policy 311, and policy 408.
Make the motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 0. Next up is truth in taxation. Aaron is.
Jaguar Pride, I guess.
Oh my gosh, I keep messing up. Jaguar
I got
Pride. I keep going up too fast. Does anybody have anything to add to Jaguar Pride?
I think I'd like to add Matt Block, now that you say that, just for all the work he's done to put our staff gatherings together. He did them for 6 or 7 times throughout the year, so that would, a lot of work.
All right, now we're at truth in taxation. Aaron is here.
All right.
The
Nice to
floor is
see-
yours.
All right. Good to see everybody again tonight. It's snowing out in December in Minnesota, so
Yeah.
we're all good, Brian. I made it.
Yes, we're good. I'm glad you're here safely.
So we've just got a presentation to go through. You've heard a lot of this from me before, but so I'll just kind of cruise through the beginning section and then dig in a little bit deeper to your specific situation when it comes to property taxes. So again, just there, you have to, by law, hold a truth in taxation hearing. There's certain dates and times you can hold it. What you are required to present as part of the truth in taxation presentation is your current year budget, which is for school districts 2025, 2026 budget, and then the proposed property tax levy. So just a little bit about what we're gonna go through, a little bit of background information on school funding, your district's budget, your proposed taxes payable for 2026, and then part of the requirement is you offer public comment if there is any public comment at all. So just kind of big picture, funding for Minnesota school districts is established by the Minnesota Constitution, and so they provide the legislature with the mandate that they must set funding for Minnesota school districts. And as a result of that, funding for school districts is highly regulated. The formulas which determine the revenue most are based on a per pupil amount. So as your enrollment changes, your overall funding will change as well. Kind of along with that, there's pretty stringent tax policy for school districts. So the legislature really sets the maximum allowable levy for school districts that they can levy on taxpayers. And then, of course, the state also authorizes districts to seek voter approval for operating referendums or school building bonds. So that authority lies within school boards as well. So just a little bit, and we'll show you in a couple slides here, but as you may be aware, the state of Minnesota provides the majority of funding for school districts to operate. So in your case, in the general fund, it's about 80% of overall funding comes from the state of Minnesota. The majority of that component comes through the general education formula aid, which is based on a per pupil amount. So again, that's based on the number of students you serve. We have a chart in the Truth in Taxation presentation that looks at the actual general education funding formula and compares that to inflation over time. And so that funding, unfortunately, has not kept pace with inflation. Recently, the legislature did make a change where that funding automatically grows with the estimated inflation amount. So that is good news, and that means that that gap won't necessarily widen, but there is already a gap in place that has really kind of reduced the purchasing power for school districts over that time. So the general education funding piece is an important component. The next that we also highlight in the presentation is special education funding, and as Brian and I have worked through your budget a couple of years now, that is one of the most challenging components to try to determine and try to estimate. So as you may be aware, there is special education funding is underfunded, so there is what we call a cross subsidy, where you're having to contribute some of your general fund dollars to make up that difference. And so statewide, fiscal 2024, that statewide cross subsidy was over $500 million. So again, just putting some pressure on districts from a budgetary standpoint and not funding the services that you're required to provide your students. So just wanted to point out a couple of those pieces. The next page is just a comparison of your operating, I'm sorry, you don't have an operating referendum, but we're comparing operating referendum authorities with some of your neighboring districts. So Mora, Hinckley-Finlayson, East Central, and Willow River currently do not have operating referendums authority. So if you look statewide, there's, on last year's levy, there were 91 districts in the state that did not have an operating referendum authority. So that's about 28% of all districts. So about a quarter of all districts don't have any authority. And you, and along with some of your neighbors, do not have some of that authority. So then moving on to the district's budget information. So again, you're familiar with your general fund that houses the majority of the operations. You also do approve a budget every year for food service, community service, and debt service funds. So those are kind of important components along with your general fund in kind of your financial operations every year. The next slide just shows your budget for the 2025-26 school year. Again, you're required to set budgets by June 30th. It lists your general fund, food service, community service, and debt service funds. So those budgets are in place. Then digging a little bit deeper into your revenues and expenditures for the district. So when you look at the revenue for all funds, it's at just under $17.5 million. Again, the general fund is the majority of your operations. Food service, community service are pretty straightforward, and then your debt service fund as well. So you're levying for those debt service payments, and you're making those scheduled principal and interest payments. So that's the revenue. Again, the general fund makes up about 85% of the total district revenue. So when you dig a little bit deeper then into that general fund revenue budget, about 82% of that funding, so as I previously mentioned, the majority of that funding does come through the state of Minnesota. Federal funding is just over 3%. Other funding, which is things like fees, interest revenue, that's about 6%. And then local levy is about 9% of your overall budget. So while we're talking about the property tax levy tonight, really when you look at kind of that whole general fund picture, it's a smaller component compared to the state funding when you're looking at those different things. So that's on the revenue side, and then transitioning over into the expenditure side. So when you look at all expenditures, your expenditures for all funds for 2025 to 2026, it's just over $18 million. And so again, like all Minnesota school districts, we're reliant on the staff that provide the services for our kiddos and for our families. So salaries and wages make up about 50% of the overall budget for all funds. Employee benefits is about 16%. So that salary and benefit makes up about 2/3 of your overall spending when it comes to all of your funds for the 25-26 school year. Then just looking at the expenditures in a little different way, what we call by program. So in green there is regular instruction, so about 40% of your overall expenditure budget goes towards regular instruction. And then on the left-hand side in the blue is special education instruction is 18%, vocational ed instruction is about 1%. So again, about 60% of all of your costs are going straight into the classroom, straight into instruction within those different categories. The next slide shows a comparison. This is some information we have that compares your undesignated unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. So you can see you are at the top highlighted in the orange, and we've got a 7-year trend here. So you can see you're at 38.9%. You can see you've got some neighboring districts that are higher than you, some neighboring districts that are a little bit lower than you. That group average is about 29%, and the state average is about 23%. So you're a little bit higher than those averages, but I think especially when you look kind of from a more statewide perspective, the metro area tends to have a little bit lower fund balance policy, just due to the number of students that they serve, and out-of-state districts tend to have a little bit higher fund balance and higher fund balance policy. So then transitioning then into your property tax levy. So we think it's important to note that a change in the tax levy does not necessarily determine a change in your budget, and a change in your tax levy does not necessarily mean an increase in revenue for the school district. So there's a variety of funding sources that have an equalization component where the state determines how much state aid and how much local levy will contribute towards that funding source. So over time, we've seen that formula kind of eroded, where a lot of that burden has shifted over onto the taxpayers. And so, again, that doesn't necessarily mean that your overall revenue is increasing. That just means who's paying for that is changing over time. So, so then just a little bit about difference in levy cycles. So again, our city and county friends, right, they all operate on a calendar year, so this is pretty straightforward for them. We levy on a calendar year, but our budget is based on a fiscal year. So that's why we're showing budget information for 2025, 2026, even though this levy is going to generate revenue for you for the next fiscal year for 2026, 27. So just like to point that out. And then as kind of part of this process, right, you approved the preliminary levy back in September. This allowed the county to generate their proposed property tax statements that went out to taxpayers in the beginning of November. And then, right, they receive that information, which allows them to come in to your truth and taxation hearing if they so choose. So we just point out that those proposed property tax statements have been mailed out. Again, they include property taxes for each of the different taxing jurisdictions which is within your communities. And then a little bit more about school district property taxes. So again, each school district has limited authority by statute to levy taxes.
And then the Department of Education calculates those levy amounts that are either based on state law or based on voter approval. We will also mention too, just kind of talking about our city and county counterparts, their taxes tend to be more on a tax rate. So as values have increased over time, they've typically generated some additional revenue. Again, school districts is based on the number of students that you serve primarily, or your debt service, which is set, based on your debt schedule. So a little difference between school districts and cities and counties again. So regarding the property tax process, so again, for those that receive proposed property tax statements and proposed valuation notices, the city or county assessor determines the values of their properties. And again, the legislature sets formulas for school district property tax levies. So really they have kind of a big role in all of this. The Department of Education works to calculate those. And then really your role as a school board is to approve that preliminary levy and then approve that final levy as well. And then the county auditor spreads all of those taxes and manages that process on behalf of the school district. So again, just kind of a sequential, you approved the preliminary levy back in September, the county mailed out those proposed property tax statements, and then we're here tonight to do your T&T hearing and approve that final levy. So then a little bit about your tax levy in particular. So the proposed paid 2026 tax levy is decreasing by about just over 200,000 or 7.7% from the previous year. The next slide that looks like this just shows those changes in more detail. So I would say generally speaking, you're going to see a decrease in some of these due to your projected decrease in enrollment. So that's going to continue to kind of push that levy down a little bit since the majority of that funding is based on a per pupil amount. So the next couple of slides, we just have just explanation of some of those levy changes. So the first you can see is on the general fund prior year adjustments, that changes about $150,000 decrease. And if you recall last year, we had a lease levy adjustment. So we're kind of sorting out your lease levy to make sure that that was up and current. So we had an adjustment there last year. It's not there this year. So that's the majority of the reason why we saw a decrease from the previous year on that. And then the second slide shows general fund, debt service fund levies. So you'll see on this page here, you'll see an increase in the voter approved levy by about $278,000, but a decrease in the long-term facilities maintenance levy of about $235,000. So again, those are somewhat offsetting each other because if you recall from a debt service perspective, really we're trying to keep your levy as constant as we can. Some of your bonds mature at other times, and so they'll make up different components of kind of that flat debt service levy over time. So what that's doing then is that's changing the makeup of your debt service levy, even though it's staying relatively constant. We point that out because on your property tax statements, there's two lines for school districts. One is voter approved and one is other local levies. So your property owners may see an increase in voter approved and wonder why that is, but they're also going to see a corresponding decrease in other local levies. So just so you know, if you might get that question, right, they didn't approve anything new or anything like that. It was just a change in the makeup of the overall debt service levy. So. And then just a little bit then about kind of what impacts individual school taxes. So it can be a change in an individual's property valuation. It can be a change in the total property valuation within the district. And again, it can change based on kind of those equalization formulas and those state funding formulas, kind of transitioning the overall cost from the state aid to local property taxpayers. On the next slide, we've just got a real kind of basic example of the impact of property valuation. So if you had two $100,000 properties within the school district and there was a $500 levy, right, they would each pay $250 towards that levy. The next page shows, so the orange house increases by 10% and the blue house increases by 25% in valuation, and they're still paying that $500 levy. The orange house pays $234, the blue house pays $266. So just the point being that even though you may have some increase in your property valuation, doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna pay more towards the school district portion of your property taxes. So then we also put together a 4-year school levy comparison to give you some context as far as kind of where your school district property taxes have been and where we're projecting them to be for the next school year. So we've got a few pages on that. We are assuming on the last slide that I'll show you here, kind of based on average, your average homeowner is seeing about a 22% increase over the course of the past 4 years in the valuation of their property. Again, that's on average, so individual property owners may see increases more than that, may see increases less than that, but that's just kind of the average. Again, to give you some context as far as what we're looking at. The next slide is a table. I'm not gonna go through that in a lot of detail, but you can kind of take a look at that if you want to just show a high level of what taxes have done over the course of the past 4 years for different property types. But the next few slides really represent that a little bit clearer and a little easier to understand. So on the slide that looks like this then, so on the left-hand side is an example $125,000 residential homestead property within the school district. So we're assuming that valuation of that property didn't change. So back in 2023, that $125,000 house was paying $294 towards the school district portion of their property taxes. You can see that that has decreased over time. So we're estimating that $125,000 house is going to pay $218 for this upcoming levy cycle. The same kind of analysis and same trend on the right-hand side. So that's a $225,000 residential homestead property. So again, 4 years ago, they paid $584. This coming year, we're projecting that they're going to pay $442 towards the school district portion. So those are residential homesteads. And then the next slide shows an ag property. So a $3,000 homestead ag property. So they were paying $1.51 per acre back in 2023. We're estimating that they're going to be paying 98 cents then for the next levy cycle in 2026. And then finally, the last comparison is a $250,000 commercial industrial property. Again, paid $999, now projected to pay $761. So you can see just kind of an example of all the different property types, residential, agricultural, commercial, are all seeing kind of a decrease in school district property taxes over time. The next slide then just shows an example of we're factoring in that valuation change. As I mentioned, on average, about a 22% increase in the valuation of those residential properties. So on the left-hand side is a $125,000 house. So back in 2023, that home would have been worth about $102,000, and they would have paid $228. Then on the right, not on the right graph, but on the fourth bar there, you can see that house is now valued at $125,000, and they're paying $218. So even though that home is increased in value by about $23,000, they're still paying less actual dollars than they were 4 years ago when you look at the school district portion. And then again, that same example on the right-hand side for a $225,000 house. Back 4 years ago, that house would have been valued at $184,000. And now again, that increase in valuation, but overall decrease in the school district portion of the property taxes. Then finally, we just have a couple of comparative charts here. So this is taxes payable in 2025, again, to hopefully give you some context of kind of your district compared to your neighboring districts. So $150,000 house last year would have paid $317. And you can see your kind of third lowest in your comparative districts there, with Isle and Willow River being below you, and then Pine City, Bram, East Central, Rush City, Mora, and Ogilvie with higher kind of overall school district taxes on residential homesteads compared to your district. And then the next chart just shows voter approved levy. So again, voters can approve an operating referendum, capital project levy, or pool building bonds. So we just do a calculation that shows how much levy per the number of students that you serve to give kind of an apples to apples comparison. So you can see this represents your voter approved school building bonds that you levy for. And then others in those comparatives include either operating referendums or those school building bonds as well. The last thing we just wanted to touch on that we think is important for community members to know is there's a few different state property tax refund programs. So the first is the Homestead Credit Refund Program. You can see that information there. The second is a special property tax refund program that's specific to if a property owner sees their property taxes increase by a certain amount from the previous year, then they qualify for a special tax refund. The third is just a senior citizen property tax deferral program. I don't mean just a senior citizen property tax deferral program, but it's a little different because it's a deferral. It's not a refund, so all it does is defer the taxes in subsequent years. And then finally, we also like to note on income taxes, starting with 2024, renters can claim the renter's refundable credit on their Minnesota income tax return, which is different than in previous years where they had to file a separate form. So important to note that there are some refund programs that are in place. We know that only about 70% of qualifying homeowners take advantage of these programs, so we like to point that out. So then, again, next steps is you're required to allow for public comment if there is any, and then you are required by December 31st to approve your levy and submit that to the Department of Education as well as your county auditor. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Our special ed funding, how much are we underfunded on that now?
That is
For at least, for last year, it's about $500,000.
Did it used to at one time be close to $1 billion?
Before the state, about 3 years ago, did increase the cross subsidy. It cut it about in half, but we're still about at least $500,000 underfunded.
That's a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just, I know with the decline in enrollment that taxes are a little bit lower, and that is nice and helpful, but I will say I am just still concerned about the community and the taxes, you know, with the levies. And part of that is, you know, I just saw something this morning on the economics in the state of Minnesota, and it's not looking very good. The state of Minnesota ranked 44% in the tax system, you know, when you look at all the other states. There's new taxes that are coming up for our community members with the paid leave, taxes. I know that there's some road taxes like with deliveries and some of that. There's just things that are just getting added in here and there, and it might not seem like a whole lot, but it adds up, especially for those, which I was glad to hear about, you know, for the individuals that might be on fixed incomes, that they can, I forgot the term, but, you know, use that deferment, which is nice. And that can be very helpful for those. But then the other thing is that we all know the state of Minnesota is in the spotlight right now. There's a lot going on in the state, and I feel that even from the public with some of those issues of fraud, and the state not managing the money. So even like the biggest one with the Feeding Our Future with $250 million fraud scheme, and if that money would have gone back to public schools, that would have been $1 million for each school. So when you look at that, and communities do pay into taxes and it goes to the state and then it does come back locally, this is an added tax, and that does have a concern for me, especially when we do have a pretty healthy fund balance. Now I know that where our current fund balance is at, that is going to be reduced once the gym floor is paid and the buses and everything like that is paid. For me, I personally would like to see maybe if we could use a little bit of that fund balance to help offset the taxes to go back to our community members because of just frustrations overall with when you're spending about a quarter of your income on taxes overall. From what I could find, that's what it was. So our wages in general, we spend about 0.25% of our income on taxes. I don't know if you have something different, but that's kind of what I was finding. And then I know too, we're also looking at a potential deficit in the state, and I know then taxes are going to increase again. So even if we could use some of our general fund and we were at that 25%, once everything is paid out, I think that could be a helpful way to give back to our community. And I know that's not one of your options.
Nope, it's.
Sorry.
To just kind of hit what Janelle said, we are anticipating when you guys will see the audit at our next meeting. We're anticipating that report to show a fund balance of 32%. However, the money that we had allocated last year for the gym floor, the 2 buses we purchased, and what's the other one? I can't remember. Either way, the things that what the auditors wanted us to do, we had budget for it and was planning to spend it by June 30th, but since the work or purchase happened during this school year, they wanted it to be on the 25-26 budget, so that it'll be reported on next year's audit. So that 32%, once that money comes out that we budgeted for, would roughly bring it down, rough math, it's about $470,000-ish, which probably is around 4%. So the report would say our fund balance is gonna look like it's 32%, where in reality, after we pay those things, it probably comes down to 27-28%. My opinion is if the board chooses to levy the max, the fund balance would eat that difference as a possibility. We haven't talked about any reductions, anything like that for next year, but that would be part of my thought is the fund balance could go towards that difference. Could it go more? Maybe. I don't know how much right now. Just we gotta see what enrollments are, what class registration looks like. And truthfully, in the elementaries, I don't know that there is a lot more room, at least at Hinckley Elementary, to make staffing reductions. So that's kind of just my thought to some of what Janelle said. I can add, and I don't know if you need to open it up to the public first, at least with my recommendation. My recommendation would be to levy the max simply. It is, yes, the max, but it is still a 7.7 reduction for our taxpayers. 7.7 decrease for our taxpayers. I don't know if you want to open it to the public, if there's any.
Yeah, I will. Does anybody in the public like to speak on truth in taxation?
Am I the public?
Yeah.
So you're gonna increase taxes but decrease them by 7%, and then one of the things you said was an increase in a levy doesn't necessarily bring more money to the school district?
I'll answer my part. I'm recommending the max, which when you look at what the state has allotted for Hinckley-Finlayson, we did the max last year. Comparing the max last year to what the max could be this year is a $213,000 reduction in funds. So yes, it's the max, but comparable what we approved a year ago at this point, it'd be $213 less.
213,000.
That's almost what I said.
So that would be important to tell people that it's not actually an increase in their taxes?
Correct. You're, I don't know if perfectly, your taxes should go down.
Right, yep.
For your part.
For the school district part,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
for the school district part.
Yeah, nothing's increasing this year. Sorry, I wasn't more clear. The increase I was referring to was over time. The state has shifted some of the funding to local property tax pay. So it may not show up exactly this year, but just at a high level, so.
I think people are really most focused on the bottom line, so if the bottom line is that their taxes are going down, don't emphasize the max part.
If we don't do anything, we're still gonna have to go into the fund balance 213,000
If we
for
make
next
no
school year,
reductions.
which is roughly, what, 1.75%. So now you're down to 25%, 25.5%.
The board did approve it being able to go down to 22 last year, so there'd be a little bit of room still.
Janelle, do you have do you wanna make a motion, or is that where you would like to go, or?
As far as under levy, so then what was that under levy?
This district has either, in its, as far, in the research that I could find, and I don't know, there are certainly other options. This district has either levied the max, or the places it has historically looked to under levy in is in unemployment, which is something that happens during the school year, or the district has looked at safe schools before, which for us pays for our SRO. Not that it couldn't be funded out of other ways. There are other places you could look to under levy, just as I've kind of done, at least the history from my predecessors. It's either been kind of levy the max, or these have been the two areas which the board has looked at before.
So I would not want to affect the SRO for sure.
I would argue we'd still have the SRO,
Yeah.
just it would be funded, whatever the levy part doesn't cover, it would be funded out of the general fund.
And there's a reason why it's those two specific categories, because those are only levies. So when you look at your other larger funding components, as I mentioned, there's that state aid local levy mix. So once you start under levying, the corresponding state aid decreases with it. So you would be lowering your levy, but you'd also be losing state aid as a part of that, outside of a couple of very specific items like unemployment, safe schools levy. So, so that's why those two have been chosen.
So with the unemployment, how does that affect things for paras that are taking unemployment during the summer?
Summer's different. This would be for anyone who would take it once the school year starts till the last student day. Summer unemployment is funded out of a different pocket. So this is
Right now.
as of the last
Sorry,
legislative
but right
session.
now.
Summer unemployment's different than this unemployment. This is for things that come up during the actual school year.
And I think to your earlier point then, right, you don't necessarily have to levy for it, but you do have to pay for it. So
Right.
it would just come from
Correct.
other general fund resources then.
And we haven't always paid the full amount we levy, which then the next year we get that credit back. That's some of the adjustments. If you think back to the last few months where you saw in what Aaron talked about tonight, some of the adjustments do come from unemployment because we don't always use everything that we've levied for.
I have a question. So if we max levy tonight, that means we have to max levy, then there's no the board doesn't have any leeway to do something less than max levy if that's what we decide tonight.
Not after tonight, correct? I guess unless a special meeting was called and I haven't submitted it to the state. I mean, I have to submit it to the state by the end of the month. Typically, I do by the end of this week when the board has approved it in the past. I don't know what happens once I hit the submit button to MDE, if that can be changed before the end of December or not.
Potentially, yeah, I'm not sure.
Once we get to the end of
yet.
December, it could not, for sure, it could not be
Right.
changed again.
Sure.
So then if it's under levied, and then you said then that would affect state, what is coming back with the state? How much? Do you have any idea?
It depends on each funding category. I'd have to look to see what it would mean.
If we went with anything other than max, what percent decrease would it be for a taxpayer? I mean, are we talking much for a taxpayer?
No. No.
Especially when
I mean,
it's $10,000.
Right, it's $10,000, so it's not like,
On the $19 million budget.
Well, yeah, because your total projected levy is $2,562,000. So, and your average homeowner, we're assuming is going to pay $442 next year. So, whatever proportion is of that.
yes, can I make a motion to look at that?
You can, if there's no other discussion, I'm looking for a motion, yes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
Dave, is that for option one? Is that what the motion was?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
We'll do roll call. Leo,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Toby,
Yes.
Janelle.
No.
Angela. Jody, yes. Motion passes 6-1. Thank you,
Okay,
Aaron.
Yeah.
Drive safe, Aaron.
Yes,
Thank you,
I'm sure
Aaron.
you have far to go, so
Yeah.
go if it's snowing.
Alright,
There's
sounds
the
good.
road for us if you want.
So the one
There's a
request
rule for
that I
it.
do have is in the future, if we do an under levy, so if we can
Sure.
actually see how that does then also impact the different categories.
Sure.
The state
Yeah.
aid, Janelle, is
Yeah.
that what you're speaking? Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, next up is board committee and officer discussion.
So just, if you wanted to discuss next month, for sure, we will need to take some action on this as it's that time of year, plus our board is gonna look different. So if the board would like to have conversation, our past practice is that the board chair, which we don't know who that's gonna be yet either, assigns committees, but just wanted to put this on the agenda as next month, we are gonna have to make some decisions. As Jody will not be here, we'll have Jamie Hendricks, and we'll need to make some changes.
Does anybody have any questions right now?
Does anybody have any interest in being chair?
I would be interested.
Okay, good.
Some of the committees that you are on, Jody, is that typical of the chair position, or did you take on extra ones?
Scholarships, negotiations. Both negotiations are usually a chair position.
Probably
Pretty much all of them,
evaluation
but
too.
teaching and learning.
Evaluation. Yeah,
Yeah,
commodities, yes. That's past practice. All right, if you have any questions, email Brian before next month, and then he'll have an idea of the vacancies or who wants to not be on it or be on something. I was assigned committees my first meeting by the board chair at the time, so if there's empty spots, it will be at the discretion of the board chair to assign you. Next up is our first read on policy 409, employee right to know, and policy 410, family and medical leave policy. Does anybody have any questions today regarding those two policies?
I'll just add the second one. The first one, there were no state recommended changes. The family and medical leave policy, I did highlight what MSBA recommends being changed, but the changes were minimal.
Is that going to include the paid leave? Is that falling under this, or is there gonna be a new
There's gonna
policy?
be, we're gonna probably have a whole new
Okay.
policy next month to look at.
Okay.
I think we have to create a handbook.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Next up then is our expenditures.
Just sharing where we are through November, that all areas are looking pretty good. Of course, community education is still a little higher, as a lot of those events happen in the summer. And with some additional pool costs that are happening, because we are still working on trying to find a cover. And the best things we have found are about just over $40,000. So we'll have a recommendation for community ed hopefully next month, what to do. But in the meanwhile, without a good cover on there, we're spending more on chemicals, heating, things like that. So, but otherwise, all in all, our budget spending through November looks very good compared to the budget year.
Is there any safety grants available for a pool cover?
We are looking, not that we have found so far.
Does anybody have any questions regarding expenditures? All right, next up is polling place resolution.
Little weird, we are not planning to hold any elections next school year, but by the end of each calendar year, the board does need to approve a polling place resolution just in case some extraordinary circumstances come up. So looking for approval of this. If we do have to have any election, we would hold it in the same places like we did this year. Again, we're not planning to. This is just in case anything comes up. So there's really no changes from what our last resolution was other than the year.
At our previous meeting, we did discuss that having elections on even years would save us some money. And since things are tight, do you know about how much money we might be saving?
I have not gotten that yet, but even if the board would want to move to even year, we would still need to do this every year in case something additional comes, say we wanted to go for a bond referendum or something like that.
Sure.
This would still cover those what ifs, but I can get those costs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'm looking for a motion to accept the polling place.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is a resolution to accept donated funds.
First one is from the Finlayson Easy Lions Club for Empower Learning Center to help with some of their activities, and they have donated an amount of $1,000, so looking for approval of that donation.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is the backpack.
This one is from Northview Bank for $1,000 to help with our backpack program, which is food for those in need that we send home with kids on a weekly basis.
Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion. One second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 7-0. Next up is another donated fund.
This one is from the Hinckley-Lions, who have donated a total of $2,339. They specified $300 is going towards supplies for the district daycare, $1,539 towards community education for a swimming pad, and then $500 to help with costs of book bingo at HES.
Looking for a motion to accept the funds.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is the watchdogs.
At least 3 of you in the last few months have brought this up, or even in the last year, that I've had some behind the scenes conversations about this. I had reached out to Pine County almost a year ago now about this. And at that time the county was applying for some grants and thought maybe if they secured those grants, they could help school districts. And this was one idea they had to help with some supervision and some support in the schools. The county did receive a grant, but they did use it for some other purposes. But what the watchdogs and doesn't have to necessarily be, we wouldn't have to follow it exactly, but what this one stands for is watchdogs is dads of great students. And I attached kind of a flyer about what it's about. It's getting, this program was about getting dads into school, positive male role models for students, and helping with positive presence to, whether it be mentor, help with just some different areas of the school, be a positive role model for students in the school. You can see in what I put what the kind of costs would be. There's a starter kit. It's about $500 for each. So if we did look at doing something like this at each school, it'd be about $1,500. You can renew it each year if you want, which then the cost goes down a little bit. There would probably be some costs for t-shirts for anyone who would volunteer, just a way so you know who's in the building and what they're there for. Then if we do follow this program, do decide to do that, there's some cost for a pizza launch event. I just have it on for discussion. That there's probably maybe questions or more things that we could look at. It wouldn't necessarily have to be just dads. I know a couple of you, as I've talked to you, what about moms? What about other positive male or adult figures in these kids' life? We could certainly look at any option, but just enough of you have brought that up that wanted to have that conversation with all of you to see if that's something that we're interested in, something you want to get me more information on, or see if there's any questions.
I got one. Do we have to do a background check on parents then?
We would. If they're ever going to be alone with kids, we would do a background check.
What's the cost of that per background check?
Oh, I want to say it's around $20.
Okay.
22.
22,
Okay.
I think.
Okay. I think it's a great idea, just.
I know some school districts where it's been a phenomenal success. It changes the climate in the classroom for behavior.
I can tell you, I reached out to just a few of the neighboring principals that I talked to, and nobody that I talked to is aware of the program or has ever dabbled in it much. I did talk to a gentleman who works at Resources Solutions. He's been around a few different states. He's a principal out in Montana, where he said he did it and it was hugely successful. There was a disagreement between the board and one of the parents, and that's kind of where it went away for a while, but he said he since talked to them and they brought it back. It's just really about being very structured, staying ahead of the program of like, really have to give these parents expectations of like, this is what your job is to do, this is how you interact with the kid, this is, you know, it's really about training the parents ahead of time before putting them in with the students. He said they had t-shirts, the parents were very easily recognized. They ran their program primarily through the counselor, who then set it up with kind of where they would be. I did ask if they had just random community members, if it was just dads, and he said they stuck to just dads at that school district that was able to, I think they had a couple thousand students. They started out with 1 dog a day, and they grew to multiple dogs a day. Just, it was really successful. Kids recognized them. But he said you really just have to stay ahead of getting people in, kind of when they're gonna be, so it's structured and it's not chaos, adding more to the teachers. But he said the kids loved it and the teachers loved it. So that was just one gentleman's perspective. There is one other person I'm waiting to hear back from that has a little bit of experience with it in a Minnesota setting.
So my first assumption was this was just like in the hallways, not necessarily in the classes.
I think it could be how we set it up.
Oh, okay.
I think this, what I shared with you, reads hallways and kind of just presence, but
Yeah, lunchroom.
I think it could be how, you know, we would want to set it up as a board and administrative team and teacher team.
You know, one of the other things that I forgot that we had talked about during the climate and communications meeting was the community engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And how this is a way to engage the community and how this could be beneficial, and just, you know, making that connection with the students and the communities and the engagement of parents. So I've heard positive things, not necessarily this specific program, but other programs that are similar, I've heard positive things about them.
Give some of our community members who don't necessarily have that college degree an opportunity to get into our school building and still feel a sense of belonging and part of that team.
The dogs program's been around a lot of years.
My thought
Around
would,
the US, you know.
I haven't called anyone yet from this myself. You know, I've just been working with the county and a few of you who brought it up. My thought would be to reach out to this company directly, and maybe they could come at least to the principals and I kind of explain what that is, and then we could bring it back to either the next board meeting or at least February's board meeting, hopefully next meeting, but with holidays in there, that these next couple weeks are gonna go pretty quick. But at least maybe the admin team could hear a presentation from Watchdogs, dogs, and then we could bring back a recommendation to the board. Get a little bit more firmer exact costs and exactly how it could look for us. And then board could weigh in, make a vote, and if voted yes, maybe we could start yet this year, or at least for next year, have something in place. But I guess that would be my thoughts, unless the board is not interested in learning any more about it.
Imagine you have to find out who's interested, sign them up, and then educate them on what they
Train them,
have
yep.
to do and what
Yep.
their expectations are,
Yep.
and vice versa.
Yeah, so there'd be, I don't know that we'd be able to, you know, even if the board says yes, let's do it. I think like Mrs. Scullard said, that training part and what is the role exactly and what does that look like, and spell it out not only for those people volunteering, but also our staff and students, you know, kind of what the role is. But I'm certainly willing to get more information and bring that back.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I will do that.
All right, next up is the superintendent mid-year evaluation. So my only thought is this next week, I will send out the mid-year evaluation with Angela's help since she's vice chair. She will receive your responses because I'm guessing they will be due after I am no longer on the board. So look for a email from Angela. I'm assuming maybe we should give you guys a few days if you want to to look at it any differently. I've always used what MSBA has given us and what the board chair before Steve, because I did do superintendent evals for Steve. So if you have any questions regarding the evaluation or how that's done, I guess let Angela know and we can go from there. Otherwise, it'll look the same. It'll be a Google evaluation. It's just gonna be mid-year. Does anybody have any questions right now?
I will also share with all of you survey results from staff too, just for you guys to have too. So I will have done that and completed that, and you'll have it in time for the January board meeting.
Okay. All right, next on the item on the agenda is a preliminary consideration of allegations against an individual subject to the board's authority. The open meeting law of Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 2B states that a public body shall close a meeting for a preliminary consideration of allegations against an individual subject to its authority. The individual has elected to have the meeting open rather than being closed. During this portion of the meeting, the board will discuss the allegations and what, if any, action should be taken to adjust the allegations. So I'm going to start with a statement which reads, Toby, last month at the November board meeting, your words came very close to violating data privacy laws. I feel they most definitely violated our school board code of ethics policy 209. This is not the first time. We have went over our policy 209 code of ethics in the past few years. I have read it line by line. I do not want your words to be representative of our whole board. I believe the school board members should be held accountable to the policies, just like the admin and staff are accountable to. Do you have anything to respond?
Yes, Chair Storley, can you please read into the record the exact sentence or sentences I said at the November meeting that you believe violated policy 209?
Yeah, actually I can. I think we need to make some changes internally. Time to revamp it. There was comments made about our students, our test scores that violate our policy. And I do believe there was a statement to the high school principal that you accused him of being a conflict of interest to assign after school detention, also violates our policy 209 code of ethics. I can tell you which code of ethics it violates if you would like.
Please.
All right, which one would you like me to start with?
You can just start from the top.
Well, number one, which is the statement regarding we need to revamp it. It would be number 7, work through the administration, employees of the school board, not over or around them. E11, present any personal criticisms of employees to the superintendent. F3, abide by all rules and regulations as promulgated by the Minnesota Department of Education and other federal and state agencies with jurisdictions over our school district. Talking down or negatively about our students in certain schools, including test scores. A4, be motivated only by a desire to serve the pupils of my district. D5, considered an important responsibility to interpret the educational program of the school as it relates to the needs of our community. D4, interpret the needs and attitudes of the community and do my best to translate them into the educational program of our school district, the school district. Moving on to high school principal, A7, work through the administration, employees of the school board, not over or around them. E11, present any personal criticism of employees to the superintendent. Those are the three I just listed. I could go on.
Superintendent Masterson already stated in writing on November 11th that, quote, "We came dangerously close to getting into a potential legal situation," unquote, but never said anyone actually crossed the line. He also wrote that staff, quote, "should never be the target of the conversation in an open meeting unless the staff member gives permission," unquote.
I even asked you, Toby, at the board meeting that we
Could I
couldn't
please
call
finish my
out.
statement? Since no individual staff member was named or targeted, and the superintendent himself confirmed no legal threshold was exceeded, can you please explain here in open session what specific law, policy, or ethical rule you believe was violated that now justifies discussing this matter at all tonight?
I just said it came close to violating data privacy laws, but I feel it most definitely violated our Code of Ethics Policy 209. And I gave you examples, and I gave you the letter and the number that's in our policy that I feel violated our Policy 209.
As a board member, we have duties given to us by the state of Minnesota through statute 123B.02. That states that the board must have the general charge of the business of the district, the schoolhouses, and of the interest of the school thereof. The board's authority to govern, manage, and control the district, to carry out its duties and responsibilities, and to conduct the business of the district includes implied powers in addition to any specific powers granted by the legislature. Minnesota Statute 123B.09, Boards of Independent School Districts, states in Subdivision 1, school board membership. The care, management, and control of independent districts is vested in a board of directors to be known as the school board. So, Chair Storley, what I was discussing, asking questions, was regarding behavioral issues that are serious. The other topic I was discussing was the transportation department having received a letter from the State Patrol since the previous regular school board meeting. And I feel as a board member, I have a duty to ask questions about safety-related issues as it pertains to our transportation department. And I did not name any individuals, and no threshold or line was crossed as stated by the superintendent.
I didn't say any laws. I said our Code of Ethics Policy 209.
I feel there was no violation of that code of ethics by simply asking questions about the status of our transportation department, what things we can do to improve. And when you did mention that, I said something, what was that first quote? I'm sorry. Revamp or?
I think we need to make some changes internally, time to revamp it.
That was in reference to what can we do with our department in terms of process and procedure. And I did not mention anybody's names.
We're gonna disagree.
So I will say the concern, especially with the bus situation, when that was brought up, is that was confidential information.
What was confidential?
The letter. that was confidential, and I had,
The state patrol letter?
yes, so if you go back in your emails, that was given to us as confidential as things were being worked through. And when that was brought forward, I will say I had some concerns because I didn't know really some of the policies, if that was going to violate that confidentiality. And so, that, I will say that is a concern, so if we have confidential information that is shared, can it be communicated or brought forth in a school board meeting?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Nothing regarding employment or data privacy can be shared without the consent of the individual in an open meeting. So about staffing or students, we should not be discussing specific people in open session without that individual's permission.
So even though there was maybe not a specific name, there was a reference, essentially.
Superintendent Masterson, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Was this letter from the state patrol deemed confidential?
I would have to look back in my email and see how I put that. I don't remember how I coded that.
Because the way I read your email, this was not coded or line itemed out as confidential. And in your email, you did write confidential on each line item that was demarked as confidential because some parts of the email was confidential and some parts were not. That's the way I read it anyway.
And then regarding Chair Storley's, with the reflection of, the questions with the behaviors and test score results and some of that, I will say that at this last communications and committees meeting, retention meeting, that actually was brought up. And just so that you're aware of that it was brought up by a community member that said that this is a concern, that they get feedback about some of the negativity that might stem from some things that are said. And I am not going to say that you're wrong. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but sometimes I think it kind of comes across as almost attacking, whereas I guess maybe I shouldn't say I think, but it's a legitimate concern. And I believe that's where you're coming from, is through a legitimate concern that you want the best for the school, you want the best for the students. But I think it's interpreted more so as attacking and that negativity, which then puts things in a bad light. So it's some of that perception that just actually really truly was brought up at a meeting with the climate, the communications, and the retention meetings. So.
Thank you for sharing that. I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
I did have a lot of questions regarding the behaviors and how it's dealt with, and the process and procedure regarding the behaviors.
Well, something that might be helpful, is it's good to have questions, but what could some solutions be? So like even this potential program with the dogs, that could be a solution. So what are some things, how can we work together as a school board, as the school, as a community? How can we work together? And I think, and I believe that's where we're all at.
Absolutely.
So.
There's a comment about after-school suspensions, and we had questions about what it would cost to staff. Is it 2 hours, 1 hour?
2 hours roughly.
Okay, what it would cost for that. Okay, you had omitted the transportation to take them home with students. And then you asked Mr. Masterson and the principal if they got paid, if they had to watch those students for a couple hours. And they said, well, no, we don't get extra pay, a teacher would. And then you rudely said, well, now I guess I see why there's no after-school suspensions. That was a quote.
Do you mean detention?
Detention. Yes, that's what I meant, detention. Very insulting. very insulting.
I wasn't directing it as a personal attack to the principal.
It was exactly that. That is exactly what it was a personal attack.
It was a critique on the policy.
But we don't critique the employees, we critique Brian. We evaluate only the superintendent.
I even brought up the point that I wish we could have made a change to the teacher contract to have a line item where there would be compensation for somebody to be assigned to watch after school detention. Because I know our administration, they work very hard during the school day. They have long days, very busy days. And the last thing they want to do is extend that day for another 2 hours when all they want to do is go home, have a good meal, and get some rest.
I understand that, Toby, but I don't think you heard what Mr. Lattimore said at the meeting, that their after-school detention might have worked when we were in high school, but in today's world, he gave examples, and it's his call. He is the principal. It wasn't for us to open back up any negotiating with our contract. The teachers had voted, they voted for their contract. And maybe his idea is gonna be better than after-school detention. We don't know. We have to give him the chance. He has the education degree as a principal, and I think we have to stop micromanaging, so to speak. It's not our role. Especially when he gave us examples of how other things could be working, are working. Does anybody have anything else to say? I don't feel like there should be any possible action. I just want it put in front of you that there are violations of our policy code of ethics, and we would never let our staff talk the way that things have been said in past meetings. And I want to make sure that we're held accountable the way we want our staff to be held accountable. Because I don't want to be talked to like that. If I went through all the years of schooling and 14 years as a principal, and I have a different idea than you, I don't want the negative nature to go out into our community now. It shouldn't be like that. I have an accounting degree. I don't have an education degree or a teaching or a superintendent's license or a principal's license. We pay these people to run our buildings, and we can disagree. Brian and I, he told you, we disagree a lot, whether you believe it or not. But we respectfully have conversations and move on. That's all I wanted to say. We're gonna move on to another closed session. I recommend we go into closed session as allowed by Minnesota Statute 13D.05, Subdivision 3C, to discuss potential sale of district-owned property. It is 8:48.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?